you'd say we kind of talked a little bit about politics, but we really went a lot further back. The comparison between Israel and America, patriotism, nationalism, and where we left last week was really teaching. We have to teach our children and our children's children. And I remember, Greg, you and I had grandfathers that spoke a lot into our lives. And this is why a grandfather has a place that a father doesn't have. He has influence over a child. I'm thinking of your dad and your grandfather. Your grandfather had influence in you in a different way than your father. Not to diminish the role of the dad, but the grandfather's way. So this is why we need to keep imparting into generation to generation to generation.
And it wasn't sitting down talking with me. It was going to the hardware store.
Yeah.
So I'd go to the hardware store with him. And while I don't realize that a lot of the life lessons were happening at the hardware store.
Yeah.
Or let's get a snow cone on the way home. That type of thing. Those were those moments that I look back at and I remember, oh, he taught me that. And that's what Israel was commanded to do at the start of the covenant with Abraham. See, Noah didn't get that covenant. Noah had the same covenant as Adam, replenish the earth. But when he chose a family then, because government wasn't working, after Noah, we get the Tower of Babel, and God divides the nations, and that's a whole other thing. And so that's when nations begin to happen. So he's going to choose a nation, but he's going to do it in a family first. Isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
Started with a family. That family, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He will redig the wells of his father. In other words, he's going to follow what his father had showed him and what he had taught him. That's one of the things that's been under attack in America. Even in our modern, every dad on television. Now, it used to be Leave It to Beaver when I was a kid. And Ward Cleaver, and he was a great guy. And then the dads got stupid.
Yeah.
You remember Archie Bunker?
Yeah.
The dads got dumber and more,
We emasculated the role of the father.
Yes.
And so we really, it wasn't important. And that all goes into why we're dealing in this nation, what we're dealing with now, is because of all these little decisions that are made one at a time. And pretty soon we end up with a generation that doesn't know the difference between socialism and patriotism.
Right.
And nationalism, and they think it's a bad thing. And let's pull down all of our memorials.
Or what a boy is and what a girl is.
Yeah, we everything goes into a place of it's up for discussion.
And I think this is what happens. Israel, their problem was they always wanted to be like the other guys. They always wanted to be like the other nations. And it would get them in trouble.
But when God has set them apart.
Set them apart for a specific purpose and reason. And that was the United States of America. We were set apart, the city on a hill, to be something special to evangelize the world from. And when we want to be like the other guys is what gets us in trouble. Our founding fathers did not want to be like England or like Europe. And now we've got a whole generation that wants to go back. They love the Queen and Princess Di and everything. And I get that. But we left that. And we left that for a reason. We didn't want a caste system to where the wealthy and the people that are servants, and dividing along socioeconomic lines. But see, all of this was done by covenant. And God, we talk about the fall. Adam fell. I don't like that word. I like to say this. God made everything perfect, handed it to man, we broke it.
Yeah.
And so it was a broken thing. And so Jesus is described as grace and truth, Gene. He's both of these things at the same time. Example, when AIDS hit the world in the 80s, we had a bunch of TV preachers saying, that's God's judgment. That's because of their sinful life. And all the preachers piled on with it. Well, that made us look bad in the world's eyes, that we're judgmental and we hate them and all that, which is not the problem. It's not true, but it appeared to be true. But that's truth. That lifestyle it becomes a truth at that point. We left out the grace. You can't have, you got to be both of these things together. So we were broken, and God established several covenants to get us back to a place of unbrokenness with the cross. But it didn't end at the cross. We had an assignment that we're supposed to do now that Jesus is gone. He handed it off like the monarch butterfly you mentioned to us. And so we can't ever have a generation that forgets the word and forgets the covenant. Let me put it to you this way. We have a lot of students that graduate even from Christian schools, and we've taught them a lot of stories I liken it like this. If you had a whole lot of balloons, and on one balloon is David and Goliath, another balloon is Samson. You have a favorite Bible story? Another balloon is
Well, David and Goliath was mine.
David and Goliath, Samson, Noah's Ark. You got all these balloons, but they're just individual stories that we've never put a bow on and connected them. All of these situations were brokenness. So we need to look at a lost world using homosexuality and AIDS. That is a broken person trying to be unbroken. And they're doing it through natural means, through world's means. And the church never made that connection. Okay, we talk about revival in this program.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I was in a lot of revival meetings.
Yes.
Matter of fact, I padded the stats of a lot of evangelists because I got saved every night.
That's right.
So in revival, there were times when my mother, and I still had school the next day,
Oh, yeah.
but we were always there.
However late it went.
And the later, the better. They were so good, the preacher didn't even preach last night.
Yeah.
You know, that's how you knew how to get church with.
Yeah.
But we were always there. And we'd sleep sometimes on the pews, but I was in that environment. And I'm not knocking children's church, but we didn't have children's church. We didn't have things to entertain us.
No, in fact, that was looked down on if you had something entertaining.
Right.
You know, you should be in church.
But there was something to us being in those meetings, even if we were sleeping,
You're in the atmosphere.
even if we're drawing, we were in the atmosphere. And I think in some ways, for all of our technology, we've in many ways hurt our children because now they have a bunch of balloons that are individual stories, and they go to college or they go to school, the universities, and their faith is challenged, and they don't know why. They just have these individual stories. They don't know why these stories impact their life. Because we never taught them the history of Samson is power gone sour, that in the end God will use him. But we don't know the covenant that he came from and what he walked away from. Or Josiah, or when the kingdom split. We've never applied all of those things that we see as tradition. We never applied them to how it impacts our daily life. And Jesus will do a great job of that with his disciples. When they would fail or something would go wrong and they were challenged, he'd have a teaching moment.
Yeah.
And he'd sit down. We mentioned it last week, the dinner. We lost the American dinner.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have dinner with each other anymore. And I go to a restaurant today and people are sitting at the same table, texting each other at the same table.
Yeah, looking at their phone.
And I've been guilty of it. Okay? And in all those things, think of how Jesus ministered to people. I'm coming to your house for dinner.
Yeah.
He said to the one guy. It was always over meals. So most of the Jewish festivals, Jewish laws, the Jewish the festivals of the Lord that they keep all revolve around dinner. All revolve around food. When he fed the 5,000, we're dealing with food again. See, we lost that. Now you can't have dinner if the TV's not on. Some people will fill their plate and go to another room.
Right.
And so that's just simple ways that we can reinstill this
Well,
connection.
what we're talking about is not forgetting your heritage.
Right.